Today we are breaking down the low value men archetypes. We are going to discuss the spectrum, what these archetypes are, the different archetypes. So the reason why these archetypes are very important, guys, is because once you understand your archetype, you understand the archetypes that you operate, you can move with more congruency. So depending on what stage of life you're in and what your goals are, you can identify the archetype that works best for you, and you can start tailoring your image accordingly. Because a guy that's 20 compared to a guy that's 35 is completely different. Their life objective is different. 20, you might be in college, you're trying to figure out what's your major, you may be dating every now and then. And a guy that's 35, he might be going through a divorce, he might be still a bachelor living seeing the single life, enjoying his life. So it's completely different. So jumping into the low value male spectrum, this spectrum shows masculine collapse. It shows the stages of masculine collapse. The way to read this spectrum, on the left hand side, you'll see that the higher that you go up, the more discipline, responsibility, and confidence you have. And the lower that you go on the spectrum, you start to lose these features, right? You start to lose the discipline, the responsibility, the confidence, the status, and the attraction. On the bottom, from left to right, we start off with avoidance, then we go into resentment, then we go into delusion, and then finally we go into collapse. If we go back to the top here, stage one, we start off here with passive weakness. And here you'll see the doormat, the lost boy, and the invisible man. Stage two, then we jump into directionless drift. Here you'll find the drifter, the escapist. Stage three would be resentment. And here we have the bitter nice guy, the simp, emotional, train wreck. And then finally, stage four, you have the chronic victim, the pretender, and the nihilist. So starting off with stage one, the doormat. So the doormat avoids conflict. That's the easiest way that you can think about it. So if we jump to the bottom here to the low value male spectrum, you'll see we have stage one, it's in green. And here, this is passive weakness. This is the recoverable zone. These men lack structure but have not yet become hostile towards responsibility. And the reason why it's green is because these men can still be helped. They're still recoverable. And the doormat is over accommodating. He avoids conflict, seeks approval. He sacrifices his own needs to maintain harmony and believes being agreeable will earn respect. And the best way that you can think about it is Peter Parker and Spider-Man. The one that comes to mind for me is Tobey Maguire. That was like the original OG Spider-Man, the one that I grew up watching. The reason why he represents the doormat is because before becoming Spider-Man, Peter constantly is pushed around at school. He avoids confrontation. He allows others to dominate the social dynamic until he eventually develops confidence. And you see that like right before he becomes Spider-Man, like dude's just always getting picked on. He's always just getting taken advantage of. Like no one really cares about him. He's that doormat. And honestly, one thing that I don't like about Spider-Man is that he still kind of shows those features, that personality, even after he becomes Spider-Man, but just to a lesser degree. The next one that we have is the Lost Boy. The Lost Boy is drifting through life without direction. He is not malicious or bitter. He simply lacks discipline and long-term purpose. And if we go back to the top of the diagram, you can see here, he's still in passive weakness, drifting through life without direction. So the Lost Boy, you can think about Peter Pan, a lot of different characters in fiction and non-fiction, but one of the biggest ones that come to mind for me is Jesse Pinkman from Breaking Bad. And the reason why is because he represents moving through life, reacting instead of leading. A lot of people like Jesse Pinkman from Breaking Bad. I think he's a cool character, but if you really analyze his character, like he's always getting pushed around. He's reactive to life, and he doesn't really have like a direction or aim, a goal for his purpose. You know, he doesn't have that mission. He lacks structure, struggles with responsibility, and only gains direction when someone stronger forces him into it. In a lot of cases, it was Walter White in Breaking Bad. That's the Lost Boy. Like they don't really have a direction, they don't really have a mission, and they're just drifting from place to place. And the next one that we have is the Invisible Man. So the Invisible Man is socially passive. He avoids attention, leadership, and confrontation. He fades into the background and rarely asserts himself. he's just invisible. No one really sees him. No one really acknowledges him. He doesn't really draw presence. A lot of guys that I work with, they struggle with this part. They struggle with commanding presence, commanding that image. Or you walk somewhere, you get that automatic respect. They're just kind of like thrown into the background. No one really acknowledges them. So these type of guys, they socially withdraw because they don't have that presence, and they feel it in their social relationships and interactions. An example of that would be like Clark Kent. And the reason why he represents it is because Clark intentionally minimizes his presence. He acts quiet, awkward, and socially invisible to avoid standing out. So in this case with Clark Kent and Superman, for him, it's a positive. And honestly, sometimes this archetype can be helpful. And one thing that comes to mind quickly for me is like when I'm traveling, I try to blend in as much as possible in any city, town that I'm in. And I try to draw the least amount of attention. I've read this across a lot of CIA, FBI articles, books, and they all mention something similar, is that you want to draw the least amount of attention in certain scenarios. Because if, let's say, you're in Colombia, you start dressing flashy, you got your chain out, you got a really nice Rolex on, you're flashing your jewelry, some nice shoes, you become like that an easy target. When you start to flaunt certain things, materialistic things especially, you start to attract the wrong type of attention. Even with women, even with dating, if you have that nice Prada shirt, you're showing it off, you start to get a lot of predatory women that just want you for your resources. So in some cases, having some of these archetype features can be very beneficial. Like this look right here that Clark is pulling off. This is helpful when you're traveling because you draw very minimal attention. Stay off the radar and do what you have to do and execute. So this is a good look. But there are men that do not do it intentionally. They just do it subconsciously and they're not really aware of it. And this is the reason why. It's because they're becoming that that invisible archetype, and they lack that presence. They're always quiet. They're awkward, socially invisible, and always avoid standing out. Then the next stage we have is the directionless drift. This is the warning zone. These men here lack structure but have not yet become hostile towards responsibility. So they are still salvageable, but now they're getting into that warning zone where it can be very difficult to help these type of men. So here you'll find the drifter and the escapist. And if we can see here that the drifter lives reactively and the escapist avoids pressure. So what that means is, for the drifter, is that he moves a lot of times through different cities, through jobs, relationships, without commitment. He's always in motion, but he's not really making any real progress. And I personally struggled a little bit with this when I barely started traveling, because when I started traveling, like I was going to these different countries, and it was very easy to just enjoy living in those countries and not really stress and worry about things. Started to stagnate. I started to like not work on my skills. I started to kind of get comfortable just dating women and just enjoying traveling. And that was a warning for me, because I realized that if I kept going at that pace, I wasn't going to improve. So I started making the necessary adjustments. And examples of this would be like Jack Sparrow from Pirates of the Caribbean. And he represents it because Jack lives without long-term structure or responsibility. He moves from situation to situation, surviving through improvisation rather than building anything stable. It's pretty cool for a little bit, guys. I'm not gonna say that like it's not like enjoyable, but you don't want to be doing this forever, right? Like this could be a discovery phase if you start your digital nomad journey, you start to travel the world, but you don't want to stay stuck in this archetype, because nothing of value, of worth, is built in the long term. Nothing is stable. Next one is the escapist. So the escapist avoids pressure through distraction, entertainment, substances, or digital worlds. Becomes the refuge from responsibility. Easy way to think about it is like guy that's always into comic books, guys always playing video games. I was here too. I remember when I was back in high school, I used to play a lot of video games just to deal with like a lot of the stress that I had from life, a lot of things that were going on with my family, and just moving a lot. And I was at this point, like I would do it with video games. I was smoking a lot of that yerba mala. If you know, you know. when I was in that point, I was in like high school. I was barely, yeah, I was like a senior in high school, freshman in college. I had to really get disciplined, and just this is the time that I started hitting the gym, and I started becoming like more of a gym bro and started training more MMA. So examples of this would be like Thor, and the reason why he represents it is because after failure and loss, Thor retreats to alcohol, video games, and avoidance instead of confronting responsibility. You can see him here from the scene from the Avengers, and this is his way to escape from the stress from reality. Then we go into stage 3, and here stage 3 is the resentment phase, and now we're treading on the collapse zone. Here, men begin blaming the world instead of fixing themselves. And right here is very difficult to help men that get to this point. So the first archetype that you find here is the bitter nice guy. Then we have the simp, the emotional train wreck, and the chronic victim. It begins the resentment phase. And here, the bitter nice guy, he's always entitled and resentful. You know those guys that like, they're dating and it doesn't go well for them. And they start becoming resentful and hating women. That's the part that's it can be very dangerous, because you start to have a very warped perception on all women. Like, all women are not the same. Same thing with men. Like, we're not all the same. There's high value men and there's low value men, and that's one thing that everyone has to understand. Same thing applies to women. There's high value women and there's low value women. Going into the simp, he sacrifices dignity and self-respect for female approval. Excessive devotion will earn attraction. That's the way that he thinks. He believes that if he devotes himself enough, he'll get more attraction, more success with women. Easy example of this is Quagmire. Like, I think Quagmire is funny. Like, a lot of the scenes are funny in Family Guy. If you notice his character, he's constantly chasing female attention and validation, often sacrificing dignity and self-respect in the process. Like, he'll do anything. He's like gesture maxing all the time, trying to get women, always trying to get laid. And a lot of times he doesn't really have like a direction like for life. He just wants to get laid all the time. I've been there. I think every guy will go through this process, but again, you don't want to get stuck here. So I noticed that we skipped over one. Go ahead and jump back here to the bitter nice guy. So the bitter nice guy, this is the first one in stage 3. He believes kindness should guarantee romantic success. When that expectation fails, resentment starts towards women. And that's what I mentioned. Like, guys like this is like they try to be nice all the time. They're always trying to be nice, and it becomes like very easy to identify the guy that's just like fake nice. And a lot of the times that comes off as ingenuine. Once he gets rejected, resentment starts to grow towards women. He starts to hate women. He starts to have that warped perception. Easy way that you can think about it is Anakin Skywalker. And the reason why he represents it is because he becomes resentful when his expectations of recognition, power, and love are not fulfilled. And this resentment drives his eventual collapse. In Star Wars, you start to see how Anakin changes, like the first couple of episodes, and then when he's a kid and he starts to grow and he starts to develop that resentment and he becomes evil, he breaks down at that point. We already covered the simp. Following one we have is the emotional train wreck. So the emotional train wreck, he's emotionally unstable and reactive. He lacks composure under pressure, allows emotions to control decisions. And Kanye West is a perfect example of this. Even though he has a lot of high value male traits, we covered him in the previous video with the high value male archetypes, he still has these features of the emotional train wreck. And this is exactly the point that I was mentioning earlier. He shows it a lot in public emotion. Like, he always has public emotional outbursts and impulsive decisions, repeatedly destabilize his relationships and reputation. He's always going through some shit, like in the media. Something's happening to him, like when MAGA was happening, and then he broke up with his girl. What's her name? What's that bimbo's name? Kim. Yeah, Kim Kardashian. And then like he's just always going through things, and he has like these highs and lows in his career, and he just has an issue with controlling his emotions correctly. That's why he falls perfectly into the emotional train wreck. Then we have the chronic victim. And one thing that you quickly find out about people like this is that it's very difficult to like them. It's very difficult to like befriend them, because they're always complaining or whining or bitching about something. And it's okay to complain about something every now and then, but the issue with the chronic victim is that they always do it. And for them, everything is someone else's fault. Society, women, bosses, family, or politics are blamed for every situation. No accountability. Doesn't seem like anything's wrong with him. He blames the world for everything. And that's just very unattractive. You see, and this is not just with men, this is also with women, everyone in general. But a perfect example of this would be like Squidward Tentacles from SpongeBob. Like he constantly believes he deserves more from life, and he always blames everyone around him for his unhappiness while doing little change for his circumstances. He works at the Krusty Krab. He hates his job. Like, if you really hate your job that much, you can get some new skills and, get out of there, stop working at a fast food restaurant and make the necessary adjustments. But for him, it's everyone else's fault and nothing falls back on him. There's no accountability. Finally, stage 4. This is the most detrimental one out of all of them. And the reason why it's very difficult, because here in stage 4, this is where psychological collapse begins. Identity breakdown is very easy at this point, and responsibility is fully externalized. So here we have the pretender, the nihilist, and finally the shell of a man. And jumping back to the diagram, the pretender is false confidence. He's that guy that always he does more talking than performing. The pretender projects status and competence that do not actually exist. Image replaces substance, and the best way that you can think about it, it was Jordan Belfort from The Wolf of Wall Street. And this is where you find like a lot of con artists, a lot of scam artists, a lot of guys that will kind of snake you will fall in this category because they're very good at pretending. Belfort here builds a powerful image of success through manipulation and illusion rather than sustainable substance. You see this a lot in martial arts and fighting. It's that guy that gets to the gym. It's like his first week in the gym, and he already thinks he knows all the moves, and then he ends up getting his ass kicked every single round, right? Then we have the nihilist. He believes nothing matters. He rejects responsibility, structure, and moral frameworks. And like I said, this is where a lot of those black pill guys fall in, and they just kind of give up, and they just become losers at that point. You never want to get to this point, and it's very difficult to change their mentality at this point. Their mindset is really fixed and set. That's why this spectrum is very powerful, because you can see the breakdown, right? Like, if you're more to the left-hand side, you can still help guys that are at this point. I've been in a lot of these archetypes. I've had a lot of these features in my own personality, and I made the necessary adjustments to where I need to get to accomplish my goals and everything that I want. This mentality, this mindset is very fixed. It's very difficult to change. And the perfect example of this would be the Joker, because he openly rejects societal structure, morality, and responsibility. His worldview is built around the idea that life has no inherent meaning and that chaos reveals the truth about human nature. Heath Ledger, this is one of my favorite actors. I think he's the best Joker. But if you see the Batman movies, even the Joker movies, like, this guy he rejects everything about society. He doesn't care. He wants to see everything just burn to the ground. They try to Hollywood, like, glamorize this, but this is lame, bro. Like, you don't want to be the Joker, bro. Like, this guy is a lame, doesn't have any friends. Like, dude's damn near crazy. He is crazy. This guy's just giving up on everything, and he's just taking it out in the dumbest way possible. Then we have finally the shell of a man. So here, at this point, this is the final stage, but it's at this point you're done. Like, best way that you can think about it is Tony Montana when he's like at the very end of Scarface, when they're about to shoot him. Like, he knows he's done. He killed his sister. He killed his best friend. Everyone around him is dying, and he's just at a point that it's like, dude, I'm done. I'm ready to go, right? And at this point, like, identity collapses. No direction, purpose, or structure remains. Tony Montana and Scarface, by the end of that movie, he just lost everything. He lost his relationships, stability, and control, and his life collapses into paranoia and self-destruction. Just like sitting in his chair, ready for Sosa's guys to come, takes a hit, a blow, and then he just starts shooting everybody up. But at that point, he's already dead. Like, he already knows that he's dead. This is the point of no return. It's very difficult to improve because everything is collapsing around you. Stage 4 is very dangerous, and this is just the biggest warning sign to never go to this stage. If you're even stage 3, stage 2, or stage 1, this is still salvageable, right? We can still make the necessary adjustments, establish better patterns, better subconscious programs, better habits to make our way into the high value male spectrum. Gentlemen, these are the low value male archetypes. A lot of guys, this is their starting point. They have issues with commanding presence, they have issues with asserting their confidence, with their identity. And once we know where you're operating from, we can tackle it correctly and make the necessary adjustments. These are the low value male archetypes. Make sure to follow me on Instagram and TikTok. Shoot me a DM if you need help with any of these. I do one-on-one coaching. Right now I'm running a 90-day pilot for Image is Power. This is an image upgrade that will help you level up your image. Shoot me a DM and we can work together. And as always, stay fresh and stay confident. I'll catch you all in the next video. Peace.